The notification sound cut through the silence of my empty office like a knife. 2:47 a.m., and I was still hunched over my laptop, debugging code that would probably get scrapped by morning anyway. Welcome to the glamorous life of Evan Hollis, senior UX designer at TechFlow Solutions, where dreams go to die in open-plan purgatory. I glanced at my phone, expecting another passive-aggressive message from Tara about wedding planning. Instead, I saw something that made me freeze. A group text, but not one meant for me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. God, I can't believe Tara's actually going through with this wedding. Her fiancé is such a loser. Why is she marrying down like that? I know, right? Evan's nice enough, but he's so ordinary. She could do so much better. Did you see his car? It's like 8 years old. And that apartment? Yikes. She says he's stable, but honestly, stable is just code for boring. Girl needs to wake up. Now, my fingers tightened around the phone. The messages kept coming, each one a fresh slap across the face. These were Tara's bridesmaids, her closest friends. The women who smiled at me during dinner parties and asked about my work with fake enthusiasm. The worst part? Tara had responded. You guys are terrible, but you're not wrong. Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing. I stared at those words until they burned into my retinas. 3 years together. 3 years of me supporting her boutique buyer dreams, listening to her complain about difficult clients, paying for more dinners than I could count because her income was inconsistent. My phone buzzed again. This time it was meant for me. Hey babe, staying late again? Don't wait up. Girls' night is running long. Love you. Love me. Right. I looked at the timestamp on the group chat. She'd sent that sweet message exactly 4 minutes after calling me ordinary and boring to her friends. I closed my laptop with deliberate calm. The office's glass walls reflected my face back at me, distorted and strange in the fluorescent lighting. For the first time in months, I felt completely clear about something. When I got home to our shared apartment, Tara was already asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her perfectly arranged form under the covers. Even in sleep, she looked like she was posing for Instagram. The engagement ring sat on her nightstand, catching moonlight from the window. 2 months' salary, just like the magazine said. I'd been so proud when I bought it, so sure I was doing the right thing. I picked up the ring and slipped it into my pocket. The next morning, Tara emerged from the bedroom in full influencer mode. Perfectly applied makeup, outfit coordinated down to her nail polish, phone already in hand to document her breakfast. Morning, gorgeous, she said without looking up from her screen. Can you believe we only have 6 weeks left? I'm so stressed about the seating arrangements. Your friends are going to stick out like sore thumbs next to mine. There it was, that casual cruelty she'd perfected, wrapped in honey-sweet delivery. About that, I said, sipping my coffee. We need to talk. She finally looked at me, and I saw the exact moment she registered my tone. Her Instagram smile faltered. What's wrong? You look weird? I pulled out my phone and showed her the group chat. Watched her face go through a fascinating progression. Confusion, recognition, panic, and finally, defiance. Evan, I can explain. Can you? Because it seems pretty clear to me. I stood up, surprisingly calm. Your friends think I'm a loser. You apparently agree. So let's solve this problem. I pulled the engagement ring from my pocket and set it on the kitchen counter between us. What are you doing? Her voice cracked slightly. I'm setting you free to find someone who isn't ordinary, someone who isn't boring, someone good enough for you and your friends. Tara's eyes went wide. You can't be serious. You're breaking up with me over some stupid texts? I'm not breaking up with you over the texts, Tara. I'm breaking up with you because they're true. You do think you're settling. You do think you can do better, so go do better. She reached for the ring, but I was faster. This goes back to the store, along with everything else. Everything else? The venue, the caterer, the flowers, the photographer, I'm canceling it all today. The color drained from her face. You can't do that. The deposits are in my name, on my credit cards, my decision. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then the tears started. Big, photogenic tears that would have worked on me a week ago. Evan, please, I love you. Those girls don't know what they're talking about. I was just being silly. You know how girls talk? Do I? Because I'm just an ordinary guy with an 8-year-old car. How would I know how girls talk? I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Where are you going? I turned back to look at her one last time. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, tears streaming down her cheeks in a way that somehow made her look even more beautiful. She was everything I'd thought I wanted. To cancel a wedding. Chapter 2. Burning Bridges, the Enchanted Garden. Wedding venue looked different in the harsh light of morning, less magical, more like an overpriced barn with delusions of grandeur. I sat across from Mrs. Patterson, the venue coordinator, watching her face cycle through confusion and barely concealed panic. Mr. Hollis, I have to say, this is highly irregular. The wedding is in 6 weeks. We've already begun preparations. Check your contract, I said, sliding the paperwork across her antique desk. 72-hour cancellation clause for the primary signatory. That's me. She adjusted her glasses and scanned the document. I'd read every word 3 times last night, along with the contracts for the caterer, photographer, and florist. Amazing how much legal protection you have when your name is on everything. But the deposits? I'll forfeit them. All of them. Mrs. Patterson's mouth opened and closed like a fish. In her 20 years of wedding planning, she'd probably never had a groom walk in alone and burn everything to the ground. Sir, perhaps you and your fiancée just need some time to work through whatever issues. There is no fiancé, not anymore. My phone had been buzzing constantly since I left the apartment. Tara, her mother, her bridesmaids. I'd turned off the notifications after the 15th call. By noon, I'd visited 4 vendors and canceled everything. The photographer tried to argue, but shut up quickly when I mentioned the clause about acts of God and relationship dissolution. The florist actually seemed relieved. Apparently Tara had been a nightmare to work with, changing her mind every few days and demanding exotic flowers that didn't exist. The caterer was the hardest. Miguel Santos had spent weeks perfecting a custom menu, and he looked genuinely hurt when I explained the situation. She seemed so happy when you came in together, he said sadly. I thought you two were solid. So did I. I was walking back to my car when I spotted her. Tara, standing next to her white BMW in the parking lot of Enchanted Garden, arms crossed, looking like a magazine ad for righteous fury. We need to talk, she called out. No, we don't. You can't just destroy everything we built together. I stopped walking and turned to face her. What exactly did we build, Tara? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I built everything and you just showed up for the photo ops. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how I paid for 90% of everything we did together. Let's talk about how I supported your career while you figured yourself out. Let's talk about how I listened to you complain about your friends for 3 years, never knowing they were complaining about me. They don't even know you. Exactly. They don't know me, but they know enough to call me a loser, which means you've been talking about me, sharing details about my car, my apartment, my life, making me the joke of your little group. Tara's face crumpled. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me, because I'm just an ordinary guy. Maybe I'm too stupid to understand. She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of her perfume. The same scent that used to drive me crazy with desire. Now it just made me feel tired. Evan, I made a mistake. I was insecure and stupid, and I said things I didn't mean. But we can fix this. We can work through it. Can we? Because I've been thinking about it all morning, and I keep coming back to the same question. Do you actually love me, or do you just love the idea of being married? She hesitated. Just for a second, but it was enough. I love you, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, you don't. You love the stability I represent. You love having someone to pay for dinner and listen to your problems and make you feel secure. But you don't love me. If you did, you never would have let your friends talk about me like that. I started walking toward my car again. So that's it? She called after me. 3 years, and you're just going to throw it all away? I turned back one more time. I'm not throwing anything away, Tara. I'm just finally seeing it clearly. That evening, I sat in my favorite dive bar, Murphy's, a place Tara had always refused to visit because it wasn't Instagram-worthy, nursing a beer and trying to process the day. My phone showed 43 missed calls and countless text messages. I'd read a few of them. Tara's friends were apparently in full crisis mode, trying to figure out what had happened to their perfect wedding content. Rough day? I looked up to see Pete Morrison sliding onto the bar stool next to me. Pete owned the gym where I'd been working out for the past 2 years. Ex-cop turned fitness instructor, he had the kind of straightforward honesty that Tara's crowd would have found refreshingly authentic if they'd ever bothered to meet him. You could say that. Heard through the grapevine that you called off the wedding. Small town and all. I nodded. News travels fast. Want to talk about it? So I told him. Everything. The group chat, the confrontation, the vendor cancellations. Pete listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or making small sounds of understanding. "Sounds like you dodged a bullet," he said when I finished. "Yeah, well, it doesn't feel that way right now. Give it time. Trust me, I've seen plenty of guys make the mistake of marrying the wrong woman. You're better off finding out now than after the papers are signed." We drank in comfortable silence for a while. Then Pete said something that would stick with me for days. "You know what your problem is, Evan. You're too nice. You let people walk all over you, and then you act surprised when they don't respect you." "What's the alternative?" Pete grinned, and there was something predatory in his expression. "Stop being nice. Start being smart." Chapter 3. The Unraveling. The next few days passed in a blur of awkward encounters and whispered conversations. Our neighborhood was exactly the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, and the sudden cancellation of the wedding of the season had set the gossip mill into overdrive. I'd moved out of the apartment Tara and I shared, crashing on Pete's couch while I looked for a new place. It was humiliating, but also liberating. For the first time in years, I could make decisions without considering how they'd look on social media. Tara, meanwhile, was in full damage control mode. She'd crafted a story about postponing the wedding due to family issues, but the truth was leaking out through the cracks. Her friends were starting to distance themselves, probably worried about being associated with the drama. I was grabbing coffee at our usual spot, well, my usual spot now, when I overheard a conversation that made me freeze. "I always thought there was something off about Evan," Marcy Lane was saying to another woman. Marcy was Tara's maid of honor, an aspiring influencer who treated every social gathering like a photo shoot. Tara's better off without him. He was always so controlling. Controlling. That was rich, coming from someone who'd watched me bend over backwards to accommodate Tara's every whim for 3 years. I approached their table with my coffee, smiling pleasantly. "Hi, Marcy. How are you holding up?" She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh, Evan. Hi." I couldn't help but overhear. Controlling, am I? That's interesting, considering I just gave Tara complete freedom to find someone who meets her standards. Marcy's companion, someone I didn't recognize, looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. "I didn't mean—" "Sure you did, just like you meant all those texts about what a loser I am. Don't worry, Marcy. Your secret's safe. Everyone already knows what you really think." I walked away before she could respond, but I caught her reflection in the coffee shop window. She was frantically typing on her phone, probably warning the others that I was acting weird. Good. Let them worry. That afternoon, I was back at the office, trying to focus on work, when my phone rang. The caller ID made me groan. Judith Nolan, Tara's mother. "Evan, dear, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding." Judith had always treated me like a disappointment she was forced to tolerate. Too working class for her daughter, too ordinary for their social circle. But now her voice dripped with false sweetness. "No misunderstanding, Judith. Tara and I are over." "But surely you can work through whatever little spat you've had. Tara's devastated. She's barely eating." "I'm sure she'll recover. She's very resilient." "Evan, I have to ask, is there someone else? Because if you're having some kind of midlife crisis—" "I'm 33, Judith. And no, there's no one else. I just finally realized that your daughter doesn't actually want to marry me. She wants to marry the idea of me, or rather, the idea of being married." There was a long pause. Then Judith's mask slipped. "You're making a huge mistake. Tara is a catch. She could have any man she wants. Then she should go catch one. You'll regret this, Evan. Mark my words." The line went silent. I stared at my phone, wondering if that had been a threat or just a bitter prediction. Either way, I was starting not to care. That evening, I was at Murphy's again. It was becoming a habit, when Pete joined me with news. "Your ex-fiancée was at the gym today." "Tara? At your gym?" That was surprising. Tara preferred boutique fitness classes with names like Bar Harmony and Pilates Fusion. "Yep, came in asking about you. Wanted to know if you'd been talking about her, if you seemed upset, that kind of thing." "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you seemed relieved." I almost choked on my beer. "You didn't." "I did. Then she tried to pump me for information about whether you were seeing anyone new. I told her that was none of her business." "How did she take that?" Pete grinned. "About as well as you'd expect. She got all huffy and stormed out. But here's the interesting part. She wasn't alone." "What do you mean?" "She had some guy with her. Tall, expensive suit. Looked like he'd never seen the inside of a real gym. They seemed close." Something cold settled in my stomach. Close how? Close like they were more than friends. He had his hand on her back when they walked in, and she kept looking at him like she was seeking approval. I processed this information slowly. It had been less than a week since I'd called off the wedding. If Tara was already with someone else, it meant... "How long do you think that's been going on?" I asked. Hard to say, but based on how comfortable they looked together, I'd guess it wasn't brand new. The pieces started falling into place. The late nights, the girls' nights that ran until 2 a.m., the way she'd been pulling away from me physically for months. The group chat wasn't just about her friends thinking I wasn't good enough. It was about her already having someone else lined up. "Son of a bitch," I muttered. "You want my advice?" Pete said. "Let it go. She's not your problem anymore." But I couldn't let it go. That night, lying on Pete's couch, I kept thinking about all the signs I'd missed. All the times I'd trusted her when I should have questioned. All the ways I'd made excuses for her behavior. By morning, I'd made a decision. If Tara wanted to play games, I could play games too. But I was going to play to win. Chapter 4. The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. It took me exactly 3 hours of casual social media investigation to identify Tara's new companion, Hunter Law, luxury real estate agent specializing in high-end properties for the city's elite. His Instagram was a masterclass in manufactured sophistication, expensive cars, designer clothes, artfully arranged restaurant meals, and gym selfies that screamed, "I have a personal trainer." More importantly, his timeline showed he'd been liking and commenting on Tara's posts for months. Long before our relationship had started showing cracks. Comments that seemed innocent on the surface but carried an undercurrent of flirtation that made my teeth clench. "Gorgeous as always." "Lucky guy who gets to take you to dinner?" Some people have all the luck. I scrolled back further, building a timeline. Hunter had first appeared in Tara's orbit about 6 months ago, around the time she'd started working with higher-end boutiques. He'd probably been a client, or maybe they'd met at one of those networking events she loved so much. The really infuriating part was how obvious it all seemed in hindsight, the way she'd started mentioning this really successful real estate guy in casual conversation. How she'd suddenly become interested in luxury properties, sending me listings for houses we couldn't afford with comments like, "Someday, right?" I was deep in my investigation when my work phone rang. My boss, Sarah Chen, sounded stressed. "Evan, we need to talk. Can you come to my office?" Sarah's office was a glass box in the corner of our open-plan workspace, offering the illusion of privacy while ensuring everyone could see exactly who was getting fired or promoted on any given day. "Sit down," she said, closing the door behind me. "I'll get straight to the point. I got a call this morning from someone claiming to be your ex-fiancée. She said you've been harassing her and her friends, and she wanted to know if we have policies about employees engaging in stalking behavior." My pressure spiked. That's completely false. I figured it might be, but I have to ask, is there anything going on that I should know about? Because the last thing we need is drama affecting the workplace. I took a deep breath and gave Sarah the abbreviated version. Relationship ended, X was spreading lies, I was handling it maturely, and had no intention of letting it affect my work. "Okay," she said, looking relieved. "But Evan, maybe stay off social media for a while. Don't give her any ammunition." I nodded and headed back to my desk, but inside I was seething. Tara was trying to get me fired. She was actively attempting to destroy my livelihood because I'd had the audacity to break up with her. That evening, I called Pete. "I need a favor." "Shoot." "Remember what you said about being smart instead of nice? I'm ready to learn." We met at Murphy's, and I laid out everything I'd discovered about Hunter. Pete listened with the focused attention of someone who'd spent years gathering intelligence on suspects. "So what's your play?" he asked when I finished. "I'm not sure yet, but I want to know more about this guy. His business, his background, his weaknesses." Pete grinned. "Now you're talking. I still have some contacts from my cop days. Give me a couple days." "Nothing illegal," I said quickly. "Of course not. Just good old-fashioned research." 3 days later, Pete called with a goldmine of information. Hunter Law wasn't quite the success story his Instagram suggested. He'd been fired from his previous agency for ethical violations. Nothing criminal, but enough to make him persona non grata at the high-end firms. His current agency was barely above a strip mall operation, despite his efforts to make it look prestigious. More interesting was his financial situation. Hunter was living well beyond his means, financing his lifestyle with credit and the occasional big commission. His expensive car was leased, his designer clothes were probably financed, and his luxury apartment was a sublet from someone who actually owned it. "Guy's a house of cards," Pete said. "All flash, no substance." Sounds like he and Tara deserve each other. Maybe, but here's the thing. Guys like Hunter don't stay loyal. If he's cheating with your ex, he's probably cheating on your ex too. That gave me an idea. I spent the next week conducting my own surveillance. Nothing creepy or illegal, just strategic appearances at places I knew Hunter frequented. The upscale gym where he took his Instagram photos, the trendy restaurants where he conducted business meetings, the rooftop bar where he liked to be seen. It didn't take long to spot the pattern. Hunter was working multiple angles. There was Tara, obviously, but also at least 2 other women who seemed to think they had his exclusive attention. A divorce attorney named Rebecca and a young marketing executive called Ashley. I started documenting everything, photos of Hunter with different women on different nights, screenshots of his social media interactions, a timeline of his movements and meetings. Then I waited for the perfect opportunity. It came on a Thursday night. I was at the rooftop bar, nursing a drink and pretending to read emails on my phone when Hunter walked in with Ashley. They took a corner table, clearly trying to be discreet, and spent the evening in intense conversation punctuated by intimate touches. I snapped a few photos, nothing invasive, just clear shots of them together looking very much like a couple. Then I went home and crafted a carefully worded message. Hi Tara, I hope you're doing well. I know things ended badly between us, and I want you to know I don't have any hard feelings. I just thought you should see this, because if I were in your position, I'd want to know. I attached the photos and hit send. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in weeks. Chapter 5. The Reckoning. The explosion came at 7:23 a.m. My phone had been buzzing for hours, but I'd left it on silent. When I finally checked it, I found 37 missed calls, 62 text messages, and a voicemail box that was completely full. The messages ranged from furious to heartbroken to threatening. Tara had apparently confronted Hunter immediately, leading to a screaming match that had awakened her neighbors. Hunter had initially denied everything, then admitted to casual friendships with other women, then finally stormed out when Tara demanded he choose between her and his networking. But the real fireworks had started when Tara's friends got involved. Marcy had left me a particularly venomous voicemail. You're a sick, pathetic stalker, and everyone knows it. You can't handle that Tara found someone better, so you're trying to ruin her happiness. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. We all see right through you. I was actually impressed by the projection. Here was a woman who'd spent months talking about me behind my back, calling me a loser and questioning why her best friend was settling for me, and now I was the villain for exposing the truth about her friend's new boyfriend. My phone rang. Pete. Dude, you need to see this. He texted me a link to Marcy's Instagram story. She'd posted a long, rambling rant about toxic men who can't let go and the dangers of dating narcissists. She didn't mention me by name, but the context was clear to anyone who knew the situation. She's really going nuclear, Pete observed. Good. Let her show everyone who she really is. But I underestimated how far Tara's crew was willing to go. That afternoon, I got another call from Sarah Chen. Evan, we have a problem. I just got off the phone with HR. Someone has filed a formal complaint against you, claiming you're using company resources to stalk and harass your ex-girlfriend. My stomach dropped. That's completely false. I believe you, but I have to investigate. They're claiming you used our computers to access social media accounts and gather personal information about people. Sarah, I looked at publicly available Instagram posts on my personal phone. That's not stalking, and it's certainly not using company resources. I know. But they have also provided what they claim is evidence that you've been following this woman and her friends, taking unauthorized photos, and sending threatening messages. The only message I sent was to warn Tara that her boyfriend was cheating on her. I have screenshots to prove it. Sarah sighed. Look, I'm on your side here, but I need you to take a few days off while we sort this out. Paid leave, nothing on your record, just let me handle the investigation. I agreed, but I was furious. Tara and her friends were trying to destroy my career because I'd exposed their precious Hunter as a fraud. That evening, I was at Murphy's, my unofficial office at this point, when a familiar figure walked in. Hunter Law, looking significantly less polished than usual. His expensive shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't slept. He spotted me immediately and walked over with a kind of false confidence that screamed desperation. You must be Evan. And you must be the guy who's been sleeping with my ex-fiancée for the past 6 months. Hunter's jaw tightened. I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now. Game? I'm not playing any games, Hunter. I'm just a simple guy who believes in honesty. You remember honesty, right? It's when you tell people the truth instead of lying to their faces. You sent those photos to hurt Tara. I sent those photos to inform Tara. There's a difference, though I understand the distinction might be lost on someone who makes a living selling people houses they can't afford. Hunter stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. Stay away from us, both of us, or you'll regret it. I took a sip of my beer, completely calm. Or what? You'll file another false complaint with my employer? You'll have your girlfriend's friends post more Instagram rants about what a terrible person I am. Face it, Hunter, you've already played all your cards. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Don't I? Let's see. You're a failed real estate agent who got fired from his last job for ethics violations. You're living in a sublet apartment and driving a leased car you can barely afford. You've been juggling at least 3 different women, telling each one she's special while you shop around for the best deal. And now that your house of cards is falling down, you're looking for someone to blame. Hunter's face went white. How do you know all that? Because unlike you, I actually do my homework. I research things before I commit to them. It's a novel concept, I know. He stood there for a moment, opening and closing his mouth like a fish. Then he turned and walked out without another word. Pete, who'd been watching from the bar, came over with fresh beers. That felt good, didn't it? Yeah, I admitted. It really did. So what's next? Yeah, I thought about it. Tara and her friends had tried to destroy my reputation and my career. They'd painted me as a stalker and a narcissist for the crime of refusing to be their doormat. They'd lied, manipulated, and attacked, all because I'd had the audacity to break up with someone who didn't respect me. Now, I said, raising my beer in a mock toast, now I stop playing defense. Chapter 6. The Final Hand. The Riverside Country Club's annual charity gala was the social event of the season, the kind of gathering where Tara's crowd went to see and be seen. I knew she'd be there. It was exactly the sort of event she lived for, especially now that she was single and available. What she didn't know was that I'd be there too. Pete's ex-partner from the police force, Detective Maria Santos, owed him a favor. Her husband Carlos was a member of the country club, and they had an extra ticket to the gala. It took some convincing, but they agreed to let me be their guest for the evening. I spent the afternoon getting ready, choosing my outfit carefully. Not the expensive suit Tara had always wanted me to buy, but my best charcoal gray, properly tailored and perfectly appropriate. I looked good, not flashy, not trying too hard, just confident and put together. The kind of man who knew his worth. The country club was everything I'd expected. Old money elegance with modern touches, full of people who'd never worked a day in their lives, mixing with strivers desperate to join their ranks. I spotted Tara immediately, holding court near the bar in a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was with her usual crew, Marcy, Rebecca, Ashley, and a few others I recognized from various social media posts. They were all dressed to impress, all perfectly made up, all performing the elaborate dance of competitive socializing. Hunter was nowhere to be seen. I stayed on the opposite side of the room, nursing a whiskey and watching the show. Tara was working hard tonight, flirting with every eligible man who approached her group, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, desperately trying to prove she was having the time of her life. But I could see the cracks. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, the frequency with which she checked her phone, the subtle tension in her shoulders that I'd learned to recognize over 3 years together. She was miserable, and she was trying very hard not to show it. Around 9 o'clock, I made my move. The charity auction was in full swing, with various local celebrities and business leaders taking turns at the microphone to encourage bidding on everything from vacation packages to artwork. I waited until there was a lull, then approached the auction coordinator, a society matron who looked like she'd been running these events since the Eisenhower administration. "Excuse me, Mrs. Patterson," I said, reading her name tag. "I'd like to make a special announcement, if I may." She looked confused, but intrigued. "What kind of announcement?" "A personal one, about honesty and truth-telling. I think it fits perfectly with tonight's theme of community service." Before she could object, I was walking toward the microphone. The room gradually quieted as people noticed someone new taking the stage. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Evan Hollis, and I want to thank you all for supporting such a worthy cause tonight." I could see Tara's table from the stage. Her face had gone completely white, and Marcy was frantically whispering something in her ear. "I'm not here to bid on anything, or to ask for donations. I'm here to talk about something that I think is just as important as charity. The truth." A murmur went through the crowd. This wasn't what they'd expected from their evening's entertainment. You see, a few months ago I was engaged to be married to a wonderful woman. At least I thought she was wonderful. We had a beautiful relationship, or so I believed. We were planning the perfect wedding, surrounded by friends who supported us. I paused, letting the tension build. But then I discovered something interesting. I learned that this woman and her friends had been discussing me behind my back for months, calling me ordinary, boring, a loser, wondering why she was settling for someone like me. The murmur grew louder. People were starting to look around, trying to figure out who I was talking about. Now, I could have been angry about this. I could have caused a scene, made accusations, tried to hurt people, but instead, I did something radical. I told the truth. I pulled out my phone and held it up. I have screenshots of these conversations. I have evidence of the lies that were told about me, the manipulation, the betrayal, but more importantly, I have proof of what happened when I tried to move on with dignity. The room was completely silent now. When I called off the wedding, yes, I called it off, not the other way around, these people launched a campaign to destroy my reputation. They called my employer, claiming I was a stalker. They spread lies about my character on social media. They tried to turn my friends against me. I could see Tara starting to stand up, but Marcy pulled her back down. And why? Because I had the audacity to break up with someone who didn't respect me, because I refused to marry someone who saw me as a placeholder until someone better came along. I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a pleasant expression. But here's the thing about truth. It has a way of coming out. And the truth is that the woman who called me ordinary and boring was cheating on me with a man who was cheating on her with multiple other women. The truth is that the friends who called me a loser are so insecure about their own lives that they have to tear down others to feel better about themselves. The crowd was riveted now. This was better than any charity auction. So I want to thank them, actually. Thank them for showing me who they really were before I made the biggest mistake of my life. Thank them for teaching me that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who don't deserve you. I set the microphone back in its stand and walked off the stage, leaving behind a room full of shocked faces and excited whispers. But I wasn't done yet. I walked directly to Tara's table, where she sat frozen like a deer in headlights. "Hello, Tara. Ladies. Enjoying your evening?" "You're insane," Marcy hissed. "You just humiliated yourself in front of everyone." Did I? Because from where I'm standing, I just told the truth. And judging by the reactions around the room, people appreciate honesty. I turned to Tara, who still hadn't said a word. "How's Hunter, by the way? Still juggling multiple girlfriends, or has he narrowed it down to just 2? "Get away from us," Rebecca said, standing up. "We're calling security." "Go ahead. I'm a guest here, same as you. I haven't threatened anyone, haven't touched anyone, haven't done anything but speak truthfully about my experiences." I pulled out a chair and sat down at their table, uninvited. "You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought I loved you, Tara. I thought we had something real. But looking back, I realized I was in love with an illusion. The person I thought you were doesn't actually exist." Finally, she found her voice. "You're sick. This whole thing is sick." "Is it? Let me ask you something. When did you start sleeping with Hunter, before or after you agreed to marry me?" Her silence was answer enough. "I thought so. And when were you planning to tell me? After the honeymoon? After the first anniversary? Or were you just going to keep living the lie forever?" "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "Then what was it like? Because I'm genuinely curious. Help me understand how someone agrees to spend their life with a person they secretly think is beneath them." The other women at the table were looking around nervously, probably calculating whether it was better to stay and support their friend or flee to avoid the fallout. "You want to know the truth?" Tara said, her voice getting stronger. "Fine. Yes, I had doubts. Yes, I wondered if I could do better. And yes, I met someone who made me feel things you never did. There we go. Honesty. Doesn't it feel good? But I never meant to hurt you. I was going to end things with Hunter after the wedding." I laughed, and several people at nearby tables turned to look. "After the wedding. Oh, so your plan was to marry me under false pretenses, then dump your side piece once you had legal claim to half my assets? Tara, that's not just dishonest. That's sociopathic." "It wasn't about money." "No? Then what was it about? Love?" "Because we've already established that you don't actually love me." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you. You're pathetic and bitter, and everyone here can see it. Maybe, but I'm also free. Free from lies, free from manipulation, free from people who think I should be grateful for their scraps of affection." I stood up as well, straightening my jacket. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies. And Tara, good luck finding someone who'll put up with your bullshit better than I did. You're going to need it." I walked away, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence, and headed for the exit. Behind me, I could hear the excited buzz of conversation as the story spread through the room like wildfire. Outside, Pete was waiting by his car, grinning from ear to ear. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it for a moment, taking a deep breath of the cool night air. Like myself again. Good, because you just became a legend in there. That was the most epic breakup speech in the history of breakup speeches. We got in the car and drove away from the country club, leaving behind the world of fake smiles and manufactured drama. In the distance, I could see the city lights twinkling like stars, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to imagine. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a downtown loft that was everything Tara would have hated, which made me love it even more, when Pete called with an update. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. "Tara and Hunter broke up. Apparently she caught him with someone new at that rooftop bar you used to frequent." "Shocking," I said, not feeling shocked at all. "Gets better. Marcy's been posting cryptic Instagram stories about fake friends and people who abandon you when times get tough. Sounds like the girl gang is imploding." "What goes around comes around." "Indeed." "Oh, and your old job called. They want you back? Apparently the HR investigation concluded that the complaints against you were completely fabricated." I smiled. "Tell them I'll think about it." But I already knew my answer. I'd started freelancing, building my own client base, making my own rules. It was scarier than having a steady paycheck, but it was also infinitely more rewarding. That evening, I was walking home from dinner when I spotted a familiar figure across the street. Tara, looking tired and older than her 31 years, walking alone with grocery bags in both hands. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy. Then I remembered the group chat, the lies to my employer, the months of deception and manipulation. I kept walking. Some people deserve second chances. Others deserve exactly what they get. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well.